When it comes to writing sonnets, you may be familiar with the idea that, oh, sonnet 14 lines. You may even be familiar with the idea that, okay, there's usually some sort of rhyming structure used with them, though not always. There's even perhaps a component of a sonnet that's even more important than all that, which involves the turn or the volta. And today we're going to be talking about where that occurs, why it's so important, and how to use it in your own poems and sonnets in the future. Good morning, guys. Good evening. Good afternoon. Welcome to Fine Print. This is our weekly show where what we do is we look at a poem that you sent to us, and it's not critique, it's not workshopping. We're just kind of trying to see what's going on in the poem itself and then trying to discuss and see what's happening to guide you in this process through poetry. There is me. Hello, guys. My name is Jeff. It rhymes with breath. We're going to take a look at our specific piece here. We do want to give a quick shout out to D Stan, who allowed us to take a look at this sonnet. We'll read through it really quick. And this sonnet is entitled Your Hand Upon My Chest, sonnet 281. Mornings, you put your hand upon my heart, awakening each day a brand new dawn. With you at my side, let us bravely start another lovely day where love is born. Evenings, you put your hand upon my soul. As we fall fast asleep, I think of you. Shared breath across the bed. I am made whole. Breathing in and out, we are one, not two. Lifetimes you put your heart upon my own. Our days as one, as calm as falling snow. Our love as one, as solid as a stone. Our life is fresh, though started long ago, to stroll through life at each other's side. The greatest gift that life could ever provide. Thanks again to D Stan. Ooh, that was the wrong button. That's the one I wanted. That's a nicer one. For allowing us to take a look at the piece. Okay, so let's take a look at what again is called the volta or the turn. Volta you hear a lot more often for sonnets. So basically, what volta means in Italian is it means to turn, change direction. And so it typically is going to fall right here because typically in a sonnet, again, you have 14 lines. A sonnet is not perfectly balanced, right? If it were perfectly balanced, then you would expect it to have like 7 and 7. But the way a sonnet actually works is it works more with some disproportionate proportions because what's happening is the first 8 lines generally are establishing a premise for what the sonnet is going to be talking about. And then the final 6 lines are where everything kind of subverts itself. You can see this very often. Probably the easiest example to point to would be if you look at a Shakespearean sonnet. Okay, if you look at all of them, the more than 100 that he wrote, you can find a very typical pattern where the first 8 lines are talking about a situation, often about a lover. A lot of times the situation isn't great, but then the speaker has this great realization and everything flips on its head in the final 6 lines. Okay. And even in more contemporary poetry, where do turns typically occur? They typically occur right around your final third mark, almost consistently. Okay, sometimes you can find a little earlier than that. But I think what you often see is that right at the midpoint of a poem, or in the case of a sonnet, right at line 7, would almost be, it's almost like 2 on the nose. Okay. By having it be a little bit less balanced, it creates a sort of tension. Okay. But let's just kind of see, in the case of this sonnet here, what are some things that are established in the first 8 lines? And how is that changed in right around where we expect our volta to be, right around that third stanza? Okay. So some things that kind of stand out to me. So, mornings, you put your hand upon my heart. So there's this idea that people are together, but there's also this separation, right? It's you, my. Okay. with you at my side. And then we finally get an us. Let us bravely start with also kind of a command, right? Where love is born. Okay. So let us bravely start. So it's a command, but we don't actually, something I think is also interesting there is we don't actually see the two actually doing an action. Like they're commanding to do the action, but we don't actually know if that action occurs. Okay. So just kind of something to keep in mind. Second stanza. Evenings, as you put your hand upon my soul, as we fall fast asleep. I think it's really interesting with sleep too, because even with another person, you fall asleep. There's still kind of isolation in the sense that each individual person goes and enters their own sleep, right? There is no shared dream. Okay. And in fact, we see more of that separation, right? I think of you. Okay. Shared breath through each breathing across the bed. So, there's kind of like interesting little, they're together, but there's also these little separations that are happening at the same time, right? Um, I am made whole. I think it's implied that I am made whole by the other person, but notice that it's not like we are made whole or anything like that. It's like, or you make me whole. Like it's just it's assumed, but not explicitly clear that I'm made whole because the other person is with me. Okay. Breathing in and out. We are one, not two. Also interesting that I think from a speaker's perspective, we are made to assume that everyone is in agreement. The you and the speaker, everyone has consensus, right? So we're led to believe that. We don't know if it's the speaker projecting onto the you or anything like that. Just a note. Our third stanza comes. So suddenly, our just span of time changes, right? Because before we had mornings, evenings, but now first dramatic change in our turn, lifetimes. Okay. You put your heart. So before, what do we have? Before we had hand, hand. Now we do heart. And we've gone from kind of more like almost like concrete things, like, oh yeah, I can imagine your hand doing that. I can imagine your hand doing that. But then on this third stanza, no heart. Now we're starting to lean more into the metaphor to a degree. And perhaps the bigger change is that now we switched over to almost like a litany, where we just get this list. Our days, our love, our life. Okay. And we also get these, we get some more figurative language, right? With similes. As calm as snow, as solid as stone. And then the last line, our life is fresh, so start longer. We break from that. So there are a couple devices here that to me I think are kind of playing into that idea of litany. Okay. I mean of litany, of like a volta, of a dramatic change happening. Okay. Just between the switch to lifetimes out of, instead of using like specific moments of days like mornings or evenings, the switch from hand to something more metaphorical with the heart. And then the use of the litany with the our days, our life, our love, our life. And then in addition to that, the sudden use of more figurative language, which hasn't, I'm just double checking, but I don't think that occurs anywhere else in the stanzas above that. Okay. So we're using some different devices. In addition to that, I feel like the previous stanzas, weakening each day, a brand new dawn. With you at my side, let us bravely start another day where love is born. So it kind of feels like we're in almost a specific moment, like again, like another lovely day, or like as we fall fast asleep, breathing in and out. So again, the two stanzas above it, the first two stanzas, kind of are placing you in like some specific moments of time, but then we get to the third stanza, and what happens? it feels way more general. We're kind of making these grand proclamations about the relationship. Our days as one, our love as one, our life is fresh. So again, just stylistically, um, we have different things happening, but even temporally, there's some different things happening as well. So these are just some quick things I want you to be thinking about in your own stanzas or also in your own poems is, where is your turn? What are all of the things that are happening to inform your reader that this is the turn? Whether it's in terms of style of writing, whether it's in terms of structure of writing. Um, Another thing that's happening in this stanza on a more regular basis is even if we just check out the punctuation, much more regular. That's not to say there's not punctuation in the previous lines. Like, you have these two commas here. Um, um, you have these three commas. Okay. But they're also in very different spots. Whereas here, suddenly the comma placement, all this these are way more predictable here. And we're following the more patterns. So we're just seeing so many different devices being used in that third stanza for the volta that I think again suggests that this is a break from the previous ones. Now, I will also say that very often in a volta, the volta is also the moment where the poem kind of subverts itself. It makes a change. Like sometimes, like in a Shakespearean sonnet, you'll have a speaker that's like, "Oh, my life is so bad. Things are horrible. I can't believe that everything is just so terrible." And then you get to your volta, and it's like, "Well, actually, my life's not that bad because you're in my life," or something like that. So a lot of times you see this just rather dramatic change in the speaker. And I will say that I think in terms of just like argumentation in the poem, I don't see I don't see that happening here. So I don't see as much of a thematic shift as much as just like structural and stylistic. Okay, so and you can decide for yourself like how much of a problem is that, because typically the turn is the moment where you start to understand more about the speaker. The speaker undergoes something, some sort of change, but obviously it doesn't have to be that. Okay. But again, just some things to think about in your own poems for stanzas or voltas. Other little differences that you notice between that third stanza and the others, I would love to know if you guys are hanging with me live or if you're watching in the replay, you can put them into the comments. It would be great to hear your thoughts. But yes, consider these things for sonnets. Let me know also last time that you wrote a sonnet. I always like going back to form. If I ever get stuck with writing or if I have a hard time, I find that going back to form kind of helps distract me from that because there's all those things you have to adhere to. If you choose to, there's opportunities for meter, rhyme scheme, and things like that. Thinking about the turn as well. So it's always great working with a sonnet. Thanks again to at DT for allowing us to check out the poem. Some things happening this week. Again, join us on Tuesday for another episode of The Verses Live, where we just kind of discuss all things poetry, craft, poetry business, and things like that. Once more, my name is Jeff. Thank you guys for hanging out with me today. I will see you all later. Hope you guys have a good day, have a good night, and a good afternoon. You guys take